Hi everyone, my name is Monique, and today I'm going to be showing you how to play a game that is currently on Kickstarter called Wasabi, a game of raw skill. In Wasabi, players compete as sushi chefs, trying to strategically add ingredients to a shared game board and collect spicy wasabi in order to serve the most valuable recipes and earn the title of champion chef. This is a game for 2 to 4 players designed by Josh Cappel and Adam Gertzbein, fully illustrated by Claire Lynn, and published by Kids Table Board Games, who are helping sponsor this video. Now before I begin, I do need to mention that everything that you see here is considered a prototype copy of the game, which means things are subject to change in the future. For more information regarding the game, as well as the campaign, I've included a link to their Kickstarter in the description below. Last but not least, if you enjoy content like this and would like to see more in the future, please consider subscribing. And with that, we are ready to begin. So, if you please direct your attention to the center of the table, we're all set up here for a 3-player game of Wasabi, a game of raw skill. Welcome to the kitchen. In the middle here, we have the shared game board, where we are going to be putting all of our ingredients in order to fulfill these recipes. And of course, we have the pantry that houses all of the different types of ingredients that you'll see in the game. In addition, each player has their own wasabi dish that will be used to house the wasabi throughout the game, as well as a hand of 3 recipe cards of values 2, 3, and 4 that are kept secret from other players. And so like I was mentioning, in this game, players are competing to score the most number of points by placing ingredients onto the board and completing these different recipes. And so in this game, there are 4 different levels of recipes, and the values represent the number of ingredients that are shown on the recipe card. As an example, here I have a level 2 recipe that shows 2 different ingredients required in order to fulfill it. And if I'm able to do so, then I'll gain the reward listed at the bottom, which is going to be 3 points at the end of the game, as well as an action card. And so over the course of the game, players will be taking turns adding ingredients from the pantry onto the shared game board. And so in order to complete a recipe, you'll have to have all of the required ingredients in a straight line, either in a row or in a column. And in the case of the higher valued recipes, these do not need to be represented in this exact order. But if you're able to do so, then you'll also gain a bonus for serving it in style. And so the way that a turn works is on your turn, you're always going to start by adding a new ingredient to the board. And so let's just say I'm the second player and the first player added this nigiri here. On my turn, I'm going to add this red snapper tile, and you can choose any of the available ingredients in the pantry. Now when placing your tile, you can choose any empty space on the game board for your player count. So for a 2-player game, you're only going to be playing on the bright square here. For a 3-player game, it adds this extra column, and then a 4-player game uses the entire board. You can also choose to place it on a space that has one of these 3 teacups, and if so, you would just relocate the teacup to another empty space, but I'm just going to go ahead and place it right here, next to the nigiri. The purpose of the teacups, by the way, is just to give players more options for placing out your ingredient tiles. This will make a little bit more sense later when we talk about how the game ends. And after adding your ingredient, then you can choose to either serve or prep. Serving allows you to fulfill 1 or more recipe cards from your hand. When serving a recipe, the required ingredients need to be in a straight line on the main game board, with no gaps in between. And you have to have contributed at least 1 of those ingredients on your turn. So in this example, this recipe requires both the nigiri as well as the red snapper, which I just added on my turn as a contribution. So then I can go ahead and serve this recipe, scoring me 3 points at the end of the game, as well as an action card, which I can take now. When taking an action card, you'll always choose from the 3 face up, and these will allow you to do a variety of different things. You can only hold at most 2 of them during the game, and they're always played during the first part of your turn, which is adding the ingredients to the board. And they'll allow you to do things such as swapping 2 adjacent ingredients on the main game board, or swapping a tile on the game board with one from the same category in the pantry. And as you can see, all the ingredients are categorized according to color. Or in the case of the stack card, this will allow you to play a tile on top of another one, essentially covering the ingredient below it. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this into my hand. Then you always end your turn by drawing new recipes into your hand to bring it back up to 3 cards. When drawing new recipe cards, you can always choose from any of the 4 stacks, but you must always follow the instructions on the back of each card that you draw. So levels 4 and 5 will require you to add wasabi to the shared pool, whereas level 3, which is what I'm going to draw, requires you to add 1 wasabi to the shared pool and 1 to your own personal wasabi dish. Each wasabi left in your dish at the end of the game will score you an additional point. Now, one thing to note is that on your turn, you are allowed to serve multiple recipes, as long as you've contributed at least 1 of the ingredients required on both recipes in that turn. So let's just fast forward a few turns and say the board looks like this, and now it's back to me. When adding an ingredient, I'm going to play my action card that's called Stack, which says when playing a tile, play it on top of another one. So this is going to allow me to cover an ingredient that's already on the table. So then I'm going to go ahead and add the tuna, and I'm going to cover up the red snapper here. Doing so will allow me to serve two of my recipes, which both have a shared ingredient type, which is the tuna that I just added. First, I have the tuna salad roll that requires me to have a maki, scallion, and a tuna. Now, they are in a straight line, but they are not in the order indicated on the recipe, which means I don't gain the in-style bonus, but at the end of the game, it'll still score me 4 points. Now, as for my other recipe card, this requires me to have a nigiri, tuna, as well as a tofu, which are in a straight line and in the exact order listed on my recipe card. And this can be running in any direction on the game board. This will now award me the bonus 2 wasabi from the supply, which will score me an additional 2 points at the end of the game. And that is essentially how serving a recipe works. Now, on your turn, instead of serving, you can choose to prep. When you prep, you have 3 options. You can choose to either take an action card from the face-up display, or you can take all of the wasabi from the shared pool, replacing one from the supply, or you can choose to discard as many of the recipe cards as you'd like from your hand, redrawing back up to 3, but this time ignoring all the instructions on the back of the cards. And again, you're only choosing one of the 3 options. And once you're finished either serving or prepping, then your turn ends and play proceeds to the next player, starting with them adding a new ingredient to the game board. As soon as there's only one available space left on the game board, the active player will place the final ingredient, and this is where the purpose of the teacups comes into play. Even though this is the last ingredient being added, they still have the option between these 4 spaces. But at the end of their turn, that is going to signal the end of the game. At that point, each player gets one final turn, including the player who ended the game. Then you discard all of your incomplete recipes and you go into final scoring. Players add up all of their points on their completed recipe cards and gain 1 additional point per leftover wasabi in their dish. And at that point, whoever has the most points wins. And that is essentially how you play Wasabi, a game of raw skill. Now again, this game is currently on Kickstarter, so if you'd like to learn more information about the game, as well as any details about the campaign, I've included a link to their Kickstarter in the description below. Now if you have any questions about anything that you saw here today, please feel free to leave me a comment down below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you all so much for watching the video. I really hope it was helpful. If you enjoy content like this and would like to see more in the future, please consider subscribing. Thank you. Bye.